Okay, everyone, welcome back. So we're going to talk a little bit more about reinforcement today and the difference between contingent and non-contingent reinforcement and different types of contingent reinforcement, okay? So essentially, contingent reinforcement means that something has to occur prior to gaining access to a reinforcer, okay? So you do A, you get B. All right, and reliably, if this happens over and over again, right, we can change behavior through this process. Non-contingent reinforcement is the opposite. There's absolutely no contingency in play in order for an individual to gain access to reinforcement. Typically, non-contingent reinforcement is used to shape someone or something as rewarding or valuable, okay? This is especially important, and you might come across this in your practice if you're working with someone new, okay? The other term for this is called pairing. So you want to establish yourself as a good thing for this new person that you're working with. Because sometimes, we're coming across individuals in our field that have had a lot of demands on them. Maybe there haven't been the best well-written behavioral plans put in place, so they have some maladaptive behaviors, and they're just not used to accessing a lot of rewarding experiences from working with individuals, okay? So sometimes it's really good to come in and not put any demands on them at all, but just to play with them. Okay, and just follow them around, do what they want to do, so that they see that you're not someone that's going to come in and just make demands and ask them to do things and delay them access to things that they want. But instead, they're going to realize, oh, this person is here. They're not doing anything harmful to me. They're not asking me to do anything. And then to up the ante, we're going to give them some sort of reward, something that's reinforcing to them on either like a time basis. It might be a variable basis, so maybe around every 2 to 5 minutes, okay? If a child likes edibles, you might give them a Skittle, okay? And it doesn't even have to be like, here you go. It can just be like you open up your hand, give them a Skittle, you're playing next to them. You keep playing, maybe you go over to the sandbox, you're playing in the sand, another maybe 6 minutes goes by, you give them another Skittle, and they're just starting to learn like, wow, this person is actually really cool. Not only is she not putting demands on me, but I'm also getting things from her that I really like. So then the next time that you show up to the house and they see you walk in, they're going to remember. You're going to have conditioned them to have this idea that when you're around, good things happen to them, okay? And so that's really what that principle of non-contingent reinforcement is about, all right? Contingent reinforcement is something that we most frequently use in our field of practice. Examples of non-contingent reinforcement are using things like token boards. You might see something similar to this right here, where they have to get a certain number of tokens. It could be anywhere from 1 to 2 to 3 to 5 to 10. Some have 20, okay? And then they get those tokens for either correct responding on a ratio base, or maybe correct responding or appropriate behavior across the interval of time. And we'll work into exactly the different aspects of delivery of reinforcement in a future segment. But so this is an example of a token board. And the reinforcer is sometimes placed on it to give them a visual reminder. Look, you're earning your choice activity. We're going to do a few more activities, and then you can have access to your choice activity, right? Sometimes we pair a non-preferred item with a preferred item. So contingent on engaging in an activity that they might not really like, they can gain access to something that they do like. So for example, this is another example of a token board. Wait, that's the same one. Just joking. Maybe they need to do math. So we say, look, math first. then your choice, right? Maybe you're sitting with the individual, you have this board out in front of them, the first then board, and they start to get a little fidgety in their seat, or you notice they're getting distracting. You can redirect them back and say, look, one more minute of math, and then it's your choice. And it's just going to encourage them. It's going to increase their motivation to attend to the materials or follow through with this non-preferred activity because they know that the preferred one is waiting for them afterwards. Okay? Another example that you might use for a reinforcement system is kind of doing the same thing as that first then procedure, but instead you're actually making a vertical list, a to-do and done list for them. So you're pairing over and over and over again something non-preferred with something preferred, okay? And this list can continue down. Maybe then they have writing, and then it can be their choice again. And as the day goes on, look, math is all done, move it over. Now it's time for your choice. Awesome. They touch the my choice, and then they can go and choose an activity that they desire, all right? That's a useful way as well. Sometimes what I will do is put out what we call a choice board. This is a choice board, or some people call it a choice menu. And so if you're working maybe like in DTI or at a workspace, you can say, all right, what do you want to earn today for doing some activities or doing something fun, whatever the language is that you're using. And they say, I want computer. All right, nice job telling me. You can have the computer. Let's put it on. Ta-da. All right, token is first, and then computer, and then you get started, right? So that's another way that we can use reinforcement. Those are some examples of contingent reinforcement. Another example of contingent reinforcement, but it's something that we call automatic reinforcement. Okay, automatic reinforcement is when we haven't pre-set up something in the environment, or it wasn't designed intentionally in its structure so that a behavior had a positive consequence or a negative consequence like this. Instead, it might be something like automatic reinforcement is they use their words and then they can gain access to something. Okay, so maybe you put something in a, you purposely have stuff like in the classroom or whatever that's tucked away up on the shelves, and you know, he comes over, he asks for help, he gains access to help. That's automatically reinforcing, right? You didn't have to do anything there. He was automatically reinforced by his behavior. We didn't have to set anything up in the environment, okay? Automatic reinforcement also often comes in the form of eating or having those primary reinforcers. So having stuff like drinking water is an automatic reinforcer because it makes your body feel good. Eating does. Sleep, okay? Appropriate temperature, those sorts of things. Those are automatically reinforcing. For some of our kids that have unusual interests or have some sort of sensory stimulation going on, they might be automatically reinforced by some repetitive movements and things like that. So stereotypies are also a form of automatic reinforcement. Okay? All right, so those are some forms of reinforcement, contingent versus non-contingent reinforcement. What I'd like to talk about now are the things that either increase or decrease the value of our reinforcers for an individual, okay? But first, what you need to do prior to doing that is figuring out what is and is not reinforcing to the person that I'm working with. Because remember, what's reinforcing to one individual is going to be isn't going to be reinforcing to another. So what we do is we conduct preference assessments. You can do this in a variety of different ways. You might see it in a form of environmental preference assessment, where you just kind of put out a variety of items in front of the kiddo and you just kind of say, all right, what do you want? Or you watch them, right? And you see what it is they pick up and gravitate towards. So then you know that you can isolate these items out, or you might want to even take pictures of those things, put them on a choice board to increase the successfulness of them as really increasing their motivation to attend to tasks. So you can do it kind of in that anecdotal form, or you can also use something that we call a two-choice preference assessment. There's also a fourth choice preference assessment. Depending on your learner, as well as the environment that you're in, you would choose one or the other. But this is a nice way to really categorize and create a hierarchy of what's most valuable to what's least valuable for reinforcers. This will be in your module if you want to take another peek at it. But what can be useful about that is you might say, all right, those ones that demonstrate to be the most or second most valuable reinforcers, I'm not going to use those during my teaching sessions. Instead, I'm going to save them. I'm going to use them for maybe some really, really important skills or behaviors that I want to increase, so that I isolate it, and that really ramps up the motivation, or what we call creates an establishing operation, which we'll talk about more in a few minutes, okay? Another way that you can conduct preference assessments is just doing something like a reinforcement inventory. Okay, this is a very lengthy document. I can put it online for you as well to see, but it goes through, and it's more of a survey that is used for a discussion with parents or team members at school to analyze what might be the most motivating things for the child or individual you're working with, okay? All right, so we talked a little bit about how we analyze our preferences here, but as a general rule, especially when we do DTI, I try to do preference assessments as often as possible, okay? So even when you sit down and you've been working with a kid all year, it's the end of the school year, last week of school, I'm still going to take out, maybe I have a box of things that I know that he enjoys, I'm still going to take them out and put a few things in front of him and say, hey, you know, what are you interested in? Because what can be motivating to him one week most likely is not going to be motivating to him the next. And we'll talk a little bit more about satiation principles, but if a kiddo has access to one thing over and over and over again, they're going to get bored of it. And it's going to decrease the value of that item, or have what we call an abolishing operation. It decreases the effectiveness of a item to act as a reinforcer. Okay? All right. So I'm going to put these away and zoom out so that you can see our screen, and we'll talk a little bit more about establishing and abolishing operations.